Friends, we are starting to learn more about the religion and culture of the American Indians in the Southwest. We learned all about the Hopi Indians yesterday, and we are starting to understand how these Pueblo Indians organize their communities. We just learned a little bit about how the Southwestern Indians understood the world around them. Just like we did when we learned about the Plains Indians, we are going to spend today reading a story from another group of Southwest Indians, the Navajo. The Navajo, much like the other American Indian groups that we learned about before, used legends to explain the world. These stories were passed down by storytellers. As we read, we are going to think about what this story can teach us about the Southwestern Indians and their beliefs about the world. How the Stars Fell into the Sky, a Navajo Legend by Jerry Otten, illustrated by Lisa Desimin. How the Stars Fell into the Sky, a Navajo Legend. When the pulse of the first day carried it to the rim of night, First Woman said to First Man, "The people need to know the laws. To help them, we must write the laws for all to see." "Write them in the sand," he told her. "But the wind will blow them away," she answered. "Write them on the water then," he said, and turned to go, having more important matters on his mind. "But they will disappear the moment I write them on the water," First Woman called out. First Man turned back impatiently and looked at her squatting there on the rim of night, a blanket of stars at her feet. "Why don't you write them in the sky?" he said. "Take your jewels there and write them in the sky." And so she began, slowly, first one and then the next, placing her jewels across the dome of night, carefully designing her pattern so all could read it. Readers, I'm going to stop here. I'm wondering, what do you notice about the characters in this story? What problem is beginning to emerge? And how does First Woman set out to solve this problem? But First Woman was not alone. Behind a low tree, Coyote crouched, watching her as she crafted her careful mosaic on the blackberry cloth of night. He crept closer. "What are you doing?" he called to her in a voice that sounded like the whine of an arrow whistling in the wind. "Why are you tacking up the night sky with your jewels?" "Oh," she answered, deliberately shifting a star, "I'm writing the laws so all the people can read them. There will be no confusion if we can always see the laws." Her hands glowed from the warmth of the stars she was touching, and she smiled as she toiled. "May I help?" Coyote asked. First Woman nodded. "Begin here," she said, and handed him a star. Coyote hung the star and stepped back to look. He hung another and another. But for each star he hung, First Woman's blanket held 100,000 more. "This is slow work," he grumbled. "Writing the laws could take many moons," she said, and began humming to herself. "Can't we find a faster way and be done?" Coyote asked. "Why finish?" she answered. "What is there to do next that is half so important as writing the laws?" Readers, I'm going to pause here. I'm wondering, how does First Woman feel about writing the laws in the stars? Why does she believe this work is important? The people will see these laws before they enter their hogans at night. The young mother will sing of them to her child. The lonely warrior crouching in an unknown country will look up and warm himself by them. Writing the laws may be what I do each night for the rest of my life. But Coyote lacked First Woman's patience. He loved best to see a job finished. Hmm. The interaction between Coyote and First Woman is showing me a lot about these characters. What do we learn about Coyote and First Woman from their conversation? I want you to compare the first woman's view of writing the laws in the stars with the coyote's view of this work. Impatiently, he gathered two corners of first woman's blanket, and before she could stop him, he flung the remaining stars out into the night, spilling them in wild disarray, shattering first woman's careful patterns. First woman leaned far into the night and watched the tumbling stars. "What have you done, you foolish animal?" she shrieked at Coyote. He crept away while First Woman wept because there was no undoing what Coyote had done. As the pulse of the second day brought it into being, the people rose and went about their lives, never knowing in what foolish haste Coyote had tumbled the stars, never knowing the reason for the confusion that would always dwell among them. Hmm. What is the consequence of Coyote's actions? What does this legend explain about the world of the American Indians in the Southwest?